Hey folks, welcome to a very special Final Fantasy Renaissance production here. Today I am going to make a good old tier list. So Final Fantasy Renaissance adds a few changes to some of the game's base classes, and it adds about another dozen extra character classes to play. Based on the experience I've had with the game, I have compiled this handy-dandy list to help you determine which heroes to bring along while you try to restore the light to the 4 orbs. The tier list is very subjective and is based on my playstyle. Your mileage may vary. And before I start, just because most people don't stick around to the end of a video, I just want to start by saying thanks for watching, and I hope you have a great day. And now, on with the list. We've got a good old fighter who transforms into a paladin when they are all wrapped up. Where, oh where will they go? Where will they go? Let's find out. So, this class has always been a staple in my parties in normal Final Fantasy, but there are two notable changes to fighters in Final Fantasy Renaissance. First is their shout ability, which gets an NPC out of the way on the map. It's kind of fun, but it's not really game-changing. The second ability they've got is a war cry, which will buff the other character's physical damage for 2 rounds. It is great in parties where you have 2 other physical attackers, and less good in parties with only 1 physical attacker. And if you have no other physical attackers, it's utter garbage. The paladins now get an ability called Cover, which lets them absorb attacks to another party member for up to 3 rounds. So it's good to protect a weakened second position character, or first position character if your paladin's in second position, but it's not so worthwhile for the third or fourth positions just because of how targeting works. Again, your mileage may vary on the viability of the cover position. Next is their limit break, which is called Invincible, which makes them immune to physical damage for 2 rounds. So, what do we have going on here? Well, they get a class quest, which lets them turn in the Excalibur sword for a shield at the Fountain in Lefion. I'd rather keep the weapon and give them the Aegis shield. Overall, I'd say the class is still a very quality class and can work well, if not excellently, in any party. But only take 1 since the available gear for them is limited. I put this as an A. Next up, we've got the Thief / Ninja. Hello, I'm the Thief Ninja. You can't see me. I'm hiding. Ha ha ha. In any case, so my first time I ever played Final Fantasy, I had one of these, and I didn't realize how much it sucked until I played the game again with a black belt. Now, in Final Fantasy Renaissance, the class is significantly improved. It's now really good at running from fights, which saves you a lot of time and resources from random encounters. The Mug ability they get is kind of neat and helps you get a few extra gold pieces when you're grinding for gear or spells in early game. The Auto Dash ability they've got makes getting around the map quicker, but watch out because you might overshoot, like I have a few times, and take a few extra steps. Lastly, their treasure hunting ability is a mixed bag. It's fun to find the loot, but you wind up getting into more fights, although you can't run from them, and nothing as you find from the hidden treasure is game-changing. As a ninja, it's more of a mixed bag in Final Fantasy Renaissance. They don't have a class quest. Their ability to throw items is neat, but it's pretty expensive at 5,000 gold pieces per throwable thing. Their Smoke Bomb ability is a pretty cool limit break, but I've only really bothered to use it in the Temple of Fiends Revisited when I need to get away from one of the fiends. Lastly is Sneak Attack, which is a passive ability which reduces the likelihood of being ambushed and increases your first strike chance. So even with all these other changes, the class still isn't nearly as powerful as the others, and it goes on as a C tier. Next we find ourselves looking at the Black Belt or Master. Where will they go? Where will they go? Let me read a little bit first, and then I'll tell you. I have always liked this class since normal Final Fantasy, and the changes in Final Fantasy Renaissance don't really do much to make me reconsider. Their key abilities are mediocre at best, except for Key Blast. That one's about as good as a Zeus Gauntlet, and you can do it once per fight. After the change to being a Master, they get the passive ability called Counter, which I always called, that doesn't work for me, brother. Their class quest takes them to Castle Ordeal, and they have to fight some enemies in a solo fight. Victory gets them a passive ability that lets them add Key Point whenever they kill an enemy with the fight command. But again, the key abilities are pretty underwhelming. So even though Final Fantasy Renaissance doesn't really do that much to change the class, I still think they are very strong. Feel free to even to take 2 of them in your party if you're going for an attack-heavy group. I rank them as an A. Next, we've got ourselves the Red Mage and Red Wizard. This class is a jack of all trades, but a master of none. That being said, everything that it is a jack of is plenty to get the job done. Final Fantasy Renaissance gives it the Saboteur passive ability, which makes their debuff spells more effective. But in my opinion, why would you do those things when you can just blast something with ice or fire or lightning or swing it up with your silver sword? After the class change, the Red Wizard gets the ability to convert spell slots from one level to another. So you could make your first level spell into a 7th level spell slot. Of course, that's super powerful, so why cast Normal Fire when you can cast Fire 3? Their Limit Break lets them reset another class's Limit Break, which may be useful if you have other characters with really powerful limits, but otherwise, The Red Wizard gets all the powerful spells you want to have on your caster. They have the ability to cast Life, Exit, all the damage-dealing spells, and even Cure 3. And while they're not blasting something with the magic, they of course get to swing their silver sword around like a total badass. The only downside to them is they take a lot of gold to equip, and that means some grinding at lower levels. But this class could populate an entire party. It's that strong. Make it an S rank. Next we have the White Mage and White Wizard. This class is good for beginners who need a reliable source of healing in their party. But more advanced players get all the healing they need from Red Mages, Tents, Healing Potions, Paladins, Healing Staffs, Heal Helmets, etc. Final Fantasy Renaissance does buff their healing spells by about 50% with the passive skill called Cleric. And they get the Pray ability, which gives characters from 1 to 10% of their maximum hit points. And that increases by 5% every time you repeat the Pray ability. Post-class change, they can visit the clinic in Melmond to get the ability to re-raise, which essentially lets the White Wizard buff a character so if they happen to die in combat, they'll resurrect with 25% health. Their limit break is Benediction, which removes all debuffs from your party. The class is still pretty decent at what it does, which is heal, and it does get the exit spell, but outside of that, there's a little pun, outside of that ability, it lacks any other out-of-combat utility. You could do better than this class, but you could do worse, so I'm going to rank it as a C tier. Next we have ourselves the Black Mage, Black Wizard. The most powerful blaster from the base game is still the most powerful blaster in the game of Final Fantasy Renaissance, but it even gets a few buffs. Firstly, the int stat now works to increase your spell damage, so it makes this class even more powerful right out of the gate. Then they get the passive ability called Sorcerer, which increases the accuracy of their damaging spells. They get a Bluff skill, which lets them boost their allies' intelligence, but this is really only useful if you have other characters who cast damaging spells. After they become black wizards, they can visit Matoya's cave to learn their priming ability. This boosts the base damage of damaging spells by 50% for each spell of the same element cast during the battle. So you cast fire and fire and fire and fire, and then your spells get super powerful. They also gain the Elemental Seal skill, which makes their next black magic skill they cast ignore resistances, but you're better off just having your wizard cast twice. Their limit ability is called Mana Font, which lets them cast spells for 3 rounds without using a spell slot. Situational at best. I mean, how many fights last longer than 4 rounds? But with a decent base from Final Fantasy and buffs in Final Fantasy Renaissance, the Black Mage, Black Wizard is a good, solid B tier. Next, we've got a new class added in Final Fantasy Renaissance. We've got the Blue Mage, Blue Wizard. This class can use most of the equipment that the Red Mage, Red Wizard can. They gain spells totally different though. You have to first look for and encounter certain monsters that have special abilities. Hope that monster uses that ability on the Blue Mage. Hope that your Blue Mage survives the enemy's ability, and then hope that the Blue Mage succeeds on a roll to learn that ability. Yeah, that's a lot. After they become wizards, though, they get a 100% chance to learn spells if they are lucky enough to survive that enemy's attack, that they were lucky enough to have targeted on them, that they were lucky enough to have encountered. So, it takes 25% of the suck out of that whole process. You may figure out, I do not like this class. I do not like it on a boat. I do not like it with a goat. It doesn't work for me, brother. I'd rather punch my dear sweet mother. But it could be useful if you can stand the whole process of training it. So I'm going to give it a D rank because while this is my list, I can at least be a little objective about how it could be useful. Next we got ourselves the Dancer. Dancer mechanics are pretty simple. Attack the enemies to gain stacks of bravery, then use that bravery to power up your dances. You've got different dances which use different amounts of bravery. You learn dances by speaking to the NPC dancers in the towns, and sometimes you'll need to perform a task before the NPC will teach you a dance, like in one instance, coughing over 300,000 gold pieces. After the class change, they get a new ability called Flurry, which makes multiple attacks and helps build bravery stacks much faster. And they get to dual wield knives. I would rank it as a B if it isn't a heavy or a party that is heavy with physical damage dealers, but I could also see it being listed as a C if it's in a balanced or magic heavy party. They're even better in New Game Plus since they already start with the class change then, but since it's my list and I would only use it in a physical heavy party, I think I'll stick with giving it a rank of B. Now, we've got the Geomancer. So, get this. You get an unlimited number of spells using the Terrain ability, but you can't control what spell you cast. And it selects from a weird, tile-specific selection of spells, like you get fire magic in the volcano and water magic in the sea shrine. And when you use the terrain ability, you can recharge any of your normal magic spell slots. After the class change, you can pick one other type of tile-specific magic to use with the sample ability. But the charges from that type of magic do not recharge when you use the terrain skill. Your class quest consists of finding magical bells, which you can equip as weapons, and turning them into a Provoca to get a special magical bell, which you equip as a weapon. The only thing keeping this class from being ranked higher in my books is the inability to control what spell types you get based on the terrain you're in. But its terrain ability, even with its normal limitations of you can't control what spell it is, and it casts tile-specific magic, still earns it a ranking of B. Next we have the Lancer and Dragoon. So the Lancer wears heavy armor, and he could tank, but but he's going to spend most of his time in the air using his jump ability, so your second character, or your first character, he was your second, is just going to take all the hits. The damage you can do with this class is about on par with that of a black belt. After the class change, you get more of the same, only now you get the super jump ability, which lets you do area of effect damage to all enemies. Your class quest involves speaking to a dragon in Onrak and then killing 100 enemies using your jump skill. Easy peasy, you're going to be jumping anyway. This class is easy to play and easy to master. Is your jump available? Then do it! Jump your way to victory. It's easily as powerful as a black belt and a master, even if you only want one in your party because of limited gear. So this class is easily slotted as an A tier class. Now we've got the Trainer and Beastmaster. The Trainer's control ability lets him turn one of your opponents into an ally who will attack its former companions. It doesn't always work though, and there are some types of enemies like undead, mechanical, humanoids, and bosses that are just plain immune to that ability. After your class change, you get the Catch skill. This lets you capture a creature from one encounter and then unleash it into a future encounter. There's a class quest to go catch a T-Rex and bring it to an NPC over in the town of Gaia, and doing that lets you then buy pet food, which you can feed to your caught pet, which will increase one of its stats. Keep in mind, your caught pet can die. This class is a pretty fun concept, and it's not unfun to play, but it just doesn't feel as powerful as some of the others. Since it's a not very offensive class and middle of the pack in performance, it's pretty clear it's a C rating. We've got the Evoker Summoner up next. So the class starts with no spells. You need to enter the astral plane version of various zones and search out portals. Then you fight monsters in those portals to make them summonable. And by the way, these are not easy fights, so you might just need to heal up after a failed attempt and try again, which can really suck if you're deep in a dungeon. So when you want to summon any of the summonable creatures other than the first level goblin, it takes 2 rounds of casting before your monster comes out. After the class change, it's just more of the same. So because of the charge up time to get summons into the battle, the annoying fights to get those time-wasting summons, and the underwhelming power of the summons, means this class isn't very fun or powerful to play. It's a very thematic class, though, and so that gets it an honorary D tier position. Next, we've got ourselves the Time Mage, Time Wizard. This class is a debuffer, so they get access to slow, sleep, and other spells like that, with very limited direct damage spells. But the real reason you have one in your party is utility. The level 3 spell Float is absolutely game-changing. Heck, game-breaking even. You can use it to avoid random encounters, avoid fixed encounters, walk over rivers, avoid pits, avoid damaging tiles, sequence break to your heart's content. After the class change, you can get the level 6 spell Tele, short for teleport. Think of it as Exit on steroids. Your class quest is to cast Tele in Castle Ordeal, and now you can set a telepoint, and then you can tele to leave the dungeon to go to a town, any town, or to the airship, or your sailing ship, and then return to the spot where you left the dungeon. Never worry about anything again. The direct damage output of the class's spells is lackluster, but that's not why you take the class. It is the most game-changing class out there, but only take one in your party. It's definitely deserving of its S rank. And while I'm at it, why the fuck is S top? This is not how the alphabet works, ladies and gentlemen. Now we come to the Green Mage, Green Wizard. This class has spells that resist elemental damage types, resist poison, resist stone, adds damage, shields, and has an HP regeneration for characters. Higher ranks of regenerate spell regenerate HP quicker. This class brings less damage potential though than even the white mage, who at least gets harm for fights versus undead. Oh, and you never get a chance to raise dead, unlike the white mage. After class change, you get an ability called Benefaction, which lets you unleash a healing burst, equivalent to the accumulated damage your wizard has taken, up to 100% of its max hit points. Your class quest has you talking to Sarda and gives you the Warding Circle ability. That now lets you set one location per dungeon level, as long as it's not in a room, where your party can pitch its tent to heal and or save the game. This class is weaker than the white mage. The class's special ability is eclipsed by the Time Wizard's special ability. The only thing that keeps it from being an F rank is the class's Warding Circle ability. It should thank its lucky stars for that D tier rating. Now we get the Bard and Troubadour. As a Bard, you're going to play a song on your harp and then you're going to hide. Or you could do a little bit of AoE damage by attacking with your harp. Once you class change into a Troubadour, you can play up to 2 songs at the same time, and then hide. Your class quest will have you talk to Princess Sarah and the Elf Prince to get 2 not-so-special harps. But this class has buffs aplenty. There's always something they can be using a class ability to do in a fight, meaning you're not just going to stand there using the healing staff or a Zeus Gauntlet like you're a stupid green wizard. B is for Bard, and that's good enough for me. Stick it in the B tier. Not to be confused with the beer. B tier beer. Now we get to the Death Knight. Do you want to miss a lot? Be a frontline character that doesn't have access to shields? Then being a Dark Knight is right for you! After you class change into a Death Knight, you're going to continue to miss your attacks. But you'll get the ability to eat bats you encounter in dungeons, which is going to give you a reason to go through all those places you've already been in. You will get a little stat increase for it though. Your class quest is going to have you take over 1,000 points of damage in a single battle without dying. Doing so will give you the ability called Misery, which is going to increase the damage you deal as your hit points get lower. Eating bats is fun. Equipping weapons that lower a character's hit chance is not fun. Stealing hit points from enemies to heal yourself is fun. Being a second-class fighter is not fun. I could see it being rated anywhere from B to D, depending on the party it's with. The midpoint is a C, and that's where it lands on my list. Now we come to the Spellblade. Spellblades are going to spend 1 round to enchant their sword with magic, then hit enemies with said magicked up sword. They have lower hit points than most other fighting classes, but they can wear most shields and armor. You'll become a Rune Knight upon class change, and you're going to keep doing things the same way, but now you have the Runic ability, which will absorb up to 3 spells from both enemies or allies. Just to be clear, and be careful. The absorbed spells give a damage bonus to the next attack. The class isn't terribly over or underpowered and is pretty middle of the road, which would normally give it a C rank, but the special encounters you get with an NPC out in the world, no spoilers, did make the game more fun, and that alone boosts it up to the B tier. The B tier with the beer. Lastly, we've got ourselves the Archer. Archers use bows. Bows only do 1 hit per round. I mean, makes sense, they're shooting an arrow. That means they do way less damage than the other physical attackers who get multiple hits. Hunters can collect animal parts after fights and can then use those parts to create special arrows that do status debuffs, like Paralyze. or silence. But you're not guaranteed to get the parts at all, and when you do, you're probably not going to have enough of the parts, the right kind of parts, to make the arrows you want to make. Once your class change into a ranger, you can use the scavenge ability on a tile where you had a battle in an attempt to find more animal parts. You might find some, or you might get into another fight. You also get the Hunter's Mark ability. It triggers at the start of your round, and the next time the targeted monster is physically attacked by anyone in your party, it causes that hit to be a critical. Sorry, all hits from that attack to be critical hits. Hunter's Mark is the only reason to bring this class along, and then only if you have a physical damage dealing party. Yep, the only value you get out of this class is to do one action to buff everyone else in the party. All other abilities they've got are gimmicks or laughably weak. I can see an argument to rate it as C if you've got it in the right party, but in non-optimized parties, it deserves the D tier rank. So there we go, folks. That is the end of my tier list for Final Fantasy Renaissance. Do you agree or disagree with my opinions? If so, share it in the comments. And because I also end all my videos this way, thanks for watching, and I hope you have a great day.